What do you say when someone asks like what you do for the first time?
I think people generally have lots of questions of what music therapy is, and sometimes they'll be thinking this is similar to sound healing therapy. Do you just play music to people and you heal, or do you recommend a playlist on Spotify and you send them the Spotify playlist and they feel, oh, when I feel depressed, I'll listen to this. When I feel anxious, I'll listen to that. But music therapy, it's much more than that. It is evidence based and it's based on this standardized research based techniques to treat people with non-musical goals. So we're looking into what your emotional needs are, social needs are, and psychological needs. And we've used music, the rhythm in the music, the melody, the sound, or even silence to support these non-musical goals. So I think this is not necessarily a niche, but it's still quite new to most people. So maybe they will have lots of misunderstandings and doubts.
And how like if I dig a bit deeper, how do you use music as like a form of therapy?
Mm. So imagine music, they have different functions. So you can use music to perform, you can teach people music, but in a music therapy session, you can see someone's playing drumming, singing, or playing instruments, or simply listening to songs, writing songs, or even just responding to sounds. But the therapist is not going to teach you how to play the music or how to make it sound beautiful and perfect. It's not about how good the music is. It's not about how virtuistic you are. We're listening to your music and see how you express it. Let's say in a music improvisation, a lot of the clients, they will project their unconscious or subconscious mind into the music. And we can see how we try to attune with the melody you're playing, rhythm, tempo, and to help you, uh, let's say, to feel less anxious and depressed. So you can see maybe someone who is really frustrated and angry in their life. They're trying to play the drum very loudly, nonstop, and it's almost he or she has a lot of anger to vent. So after the music, you could, try to talk with them and see, oh, why are you playing the music in such way? And then you could have a little conversation, or a music analysis after that. It's all very client centered.
So
Yeah, I like this because I do feel like, sorry to sort of butt in front of you there, Jake, but I think you'll agree with me on this based on many discussions we've had in the past. But music is its own universal language, and it's not just a language that I guess anyone from any culture can understand, but it's also a language that communicates human emotion and human experience in a more, let's say, unrestricted way than say language does.
Mm,
Maybe like you say, it's more freeing and less intimidating. You spoke there about a client, and you could infer things about their mental state and their experience and the way they were playing music. Maybe that for them is so much easier than if you sat them down and asked them like, how are you at the moment? Sometimes using language is pinning it down like that in language is so difficult and makes us feel so vulnerable. And so music is like this more free flowing, open discourse to communicate feeling. Is that sort of do you agree with that point, and does that resonate with the stuff you do?
yes, I do resonate because sometimes music touches the souls, touches our deepest inner world that words cannot reach. And let's say for clients who are nonverbal, they can't even speak and express themselves. How do you expect them to sit down and tell you how traumatic their experiences is? Or for some children and young people, they're very, very vulnerable. They just don't know how to express themselves in words. And music is so creative, is so non-judgmental, and is a less confrontational way to get to know somebody's experiences, and even if it's the very difficult ones or the traumatic ones. So I think, Joel, you definitely got the point there.
I'm just like imagining like a teenager that's very angry at the world, and he looks towards like heavy metal as he's sort of walking around as his way to like release that, and that those people that are screaming into the mic have share the same, like, it's relatable. They share the same like emotion, and I'm almost trying to think whether like music is kind of like the solution, because I also think about like heartbreak songs and how someone who's just broken up with someone might put on Adele, and the Adele is talking about what she's going through. And is it kind of like a, would you go as far to say that music is like a method of healing, or a solution to our anxiety, to our depression?
Yeah, music could, you can think of it as two ways, right? So let's say if you're feeling sad and then you put on a sad song, some people will feel even sadder. But maybe that's what they actually want. They actually want to amplify that sadness, that manifestation of it, turn it into, even just tearing or breaking down or bursting out the emotions. And that is, if that is the emotional outlet they want, so that the sad song serves the purpose. And for some people, when they feel sad, they just want to go to gym and they want to like put on a heavy metal song or something that is like boom, boom, boom. And they feel that after the sweat and with that music, they feel this is their emotional outlet. They feel that this is the energy, the outburst of energy they wanted, and they feel uplifted, energized, and less sad, less depressed. And that is another way. So it's really, really depends on how music serves you individually and how it is, tailored to your needs. And that's what music therapists do. We don't have like one standalone practice, one assessment plan or one session plan for all the clients. And we don't have the same plan for clients with depression, because everyone's symptoms is so different. And you have to look into their past, look into, the relationships they have with the people around them. So there are lots of layers beneath that.
Yeah, I think there are two sides to what we've just discussed there. One is like I want to call it a catharsis effect,
Mm.
where like through the music you feel seen and justified in your feelings. And I think generally speaking, that's what artists try to do, right? In any discipline, it's they're experiencing something in their life, and they have due to their sort of creative inclinations, they have this ability to capture that piece of experience, and produce something to display that experience, whether that's a painting or a sculpture or a song or a poem or whatever. And as consumers, when we when we come into contact with that product, we feel seen in having a similar experience to that person, and that's something that's very beautiful about art. So I think there's definitely that element to it, as you were saying, Jacob, about like the teenager listening to heavy metal music. Like, even though to me that like the idea of that is just listening to that is horrible, I understand where it's coming from, right? But then what you said there, Mary, I think is very true as well, in terms of the ability to amplify current feelings. Maybe it's the same thing. You feel seen, you feel validated in what you're experiencing, and you feel justified, and then you almost allow yourself to feel like, I don't know. I find it very hard to cry, and I know I need to cry more. I feel like, I don't know if it's a being a young guy thing or just like a fragile masculine ego thing, but there are times where I just, no, God, I need to just release some emotion right now. And over the past few years, the best possible thing to do that is a song, even if like the song subject matter isn't exactly the same as what's causing my negative emotion. It's more just like the vulnerability of the artist, I guess, promotes me to then like be vulnerable myself. And I think there's a lot of power in that.
Kind of like you got a friend there that's listening
Yes,
to you.
yes, you feel. I mean, I guess in terms of music, you feel heard less than you feel seen. You feel heard. Um, so that's
And
that's power.
what does that kind of look like? I know for you, Mary, it must be different client to client, but when someone has a problem, are you like physically playing the music yourself, or like do you like recommend other solutions?
So my sessions are a bit more client centered. So instead of me suggesting something directly, I'll look into what clients want. Let's say in the assessment, we'll see what kind of music they like in daily life, what their relationship with music is, how frequent do they listen to music, because you can't just assume everyone likes music. There are people that don't have music in their life at all, and because it could be something that's touching their vulnerabilities deeply and they are trying to avoid that. So we're looking into different aspects of their life first. And let's say if the client said, oh, I listen to mostly pop songs, then you try to, understand what kind of artists do they like and what do they like about this song. Um, and you could suggest something. There's a certain structure in the therapy sessions. Let's say you can suggest, oh, if you like this song, should we try to write some songs that express yourself in a similar way? Or do you feel comfortable using the same melody, but we change the tempo and the rhythm and we add our own lyrics into it and see how you want it to sound like? Or do you feel like you will be safe if you want to just sing the songs and to do a little performance if that's what you want? Or for some children and young people, they might prefer music activities a bit more, using different materials, even art or drawing, and then with the music. They enjoy this kind of activities a bit more than the free improvisation, because sometimes if you ask someone who is not very musical or who does not have much musical background to just play whatever they are, they will be very confused. They will be like, oh, what should I play? What chord progression should I use? They'll have tons of questions in their head. And this is when you try to guide them. But instead of telling them directly what to do, you're guiding them to seek what they want in music.
I'm also thinking about it the other way as well, because I think just from sort of philosophy books I've read, the consumption and what we consume, it it has a direct effect on the mind, and then the mind then projects whatever that is into the future. And so if you have a parent that's letting their children listen to Eminem when they're like 4 or 5, and it's got like talking about crazy like adult themes, like is that child like gonna be more likely to, I don't know, be violent or something? I'm thinking of it that way as well. That maybe there's people that are exposed to stuff when they're young, and then maybe there's context where you have to sort of change what they're listening to. And I think, I think me and Joel kind of came to the realization a lot like earlier, maybe this year, about is is listening to like aggressive rap and drill like all the time, is that, how good is that for me? And I think we came to the conclusion like that maybe it's got its time and its place when I'm in the gym and I'm trying to like I'm trying to release all of my like, I don't know, aggressive energy. But if I'm just walking to uni all the time, I don't know how good that is for me.
Mm.
But yeah.
Just to add to that, Mary, before you answer, I think Jacob, with the like Eminem being a toddler child example, I think it would less be about the adult themes, I guess, that he's like talking about, but more about, I want to say, the emotional energy of the music. And I don't know if that's a term that you'd use in your work, Mary, or whether that's just a woo-woo abstract term that I've just plucked out of obscurity. But I think there's something to that. And I think that's what we're also pointing to when we're talking about um, how much does your music consumption serve your mental health? I think that's a good question, because even some parts of pop music, the vibe, or to use the full word, the vibration that is then inputting into your life, is that something you really want? I can just imagine it, for example. So like I listen to the majority of my music when I'm in the car, because of the nature of what I do. I spend a lot of time on the road, and if I'm going around listening to like more angry music, let's say, but am I more likely to be angry towards other drivers if someone like pulls out on me, or like cuts me off on the motorway. Whereas if I'm listening to something smooth and classical, or a beautiful love song, or a great beautiful melody, like surely when something like that happens, I'll just brush it off and go, you know what, my inner citadel in this car, my like place of harmony in this car cannot be shook by the anger in the outside world, because I'm on a completely different wavelength. But I don't know if they're like they're too unscientific of terms. But yeah,
You should listen to Frank Sinatra, and you're
that's
just
it. Like, how
peaceful.
can you be angry listening to Frank Sinatra? It's just hard. It's like it's too. It's like almost like if you're trying to be angry and you put music like that on, it's like clash two emotional worlds clashing.
Yeah. Music definitely affects your thinking and behavior. And I agree that with a lot of the pop songs nowadays, or let's say rap songs, they make the melody, they make the whole song very vibey, very catchy, easy to remember. But the lyrics were absolutely horrible. It's a lot about sex and violence and aggression. And maybe for some young people and teenagers, they don't understand fully what the lyrics are about. They just love they just love the melody. And that kind of subconsciously gets into your brain and affects your behavior, and that could actually happen. And it's not a woo-woo word to say like there's some certain type of energy and vibration. I do believe that. But maybe there needs to be a bit more research on how that whole system or mechanism works. But I think I've read the news a few weeks ago about how McDonald's is considering putting classical music in the background instead of some pop songs to make people feel a bit more, bougie in a way. And if you pay attention to, these five-star restaurants, hotels, they are putting mostly just jazz music, the blues, classical music to make people feel they're in a certain environment that is, the social class, and to feel more maybe superior. And that also affects their spending behavior or consumerism. And there is actually scientific proof about how the tempo, the rhythm, the music affects people's pace of eating, pace of spending. So if you're putting like a very, very uplifting, fast paced music, and people will tend to eat faster and maybe spend more impulsively in a shop. But if you're putting something that's more mellow, more soft, not rushing, people will start to, take time. They think of, oh, do I actually need to buy this? Or I just want to, be a bit more mindful in my eating. So I would say, yeah, sounds and music definitely affects your behavior.
I think it to me, I just want to like add a bit more to that because that's really great, and then I've got a question that's going back to something you said at the beginning of that. But to me, it sounds like unconscious priming. It sounds like those you might know this 'cause I don't know, Mary. I imagine you like were studied psychology. I imagine in like the education system and stuff. But you'll probably have heard of these studies. That's why I'm saying that, where they had like I can't remember the exact details, but they were looking at unconscious priming, and there was like people going through a hallway before they then had like an interaction with somebody. I don't know if it was an interview or something, but in the hallway before the interview, they were deceived to think that the study was about whatever happened in the interview. But actually, it was about they met somebody in the hallway and they were either given a cold or a hot drink to hold. And then like there was two conditions, right? So you'd either have to hold a cold drink for somebody for a little bit or hold a hot drink. And those who held a hot drink, they're more likely to like evaluate the person they were meeting as like more friendly and more approachable. Whereas in the cold drink condition, they were more likely, like statistically significant. This was a statistically significant result. They were more likely to like evaluate that person as less warm, less friendly, less approachable, which showed like the unconscious priming of the sense perception of the heat and the cold. And I think music does the exact same thing. There's like this, like 100% shops do that. There's no doubt about it. Food places do that. But even I think about the example that came to my head, right, is when I'm on a Ryanair flight, they play like this little jingle music, right, as everyone's sitting down. And it's so irritating. It's so, right? No, it is honestly, and it's like the voice of the lady that's like, Ryanair low fares. I was just like, oh, go away. Like, you just want to probably that flight has been delayed 2 hours and you're just fuming. You just want to get in your seat, get home, right? Whereas compare that to, I was lucky enough to go on a British Airways flight in the summer. They play classical music when people are getting onto the plane. And boarding the plane and getting to their seats. And I think there is something to that, the kind of the classical music, whether it's jazz, like you said, in hotel lobbies, they want to convey this sort of sophisticated energy because they are a more expensive and more, what's the right word? More, I don't know, more extravagant, like, circumstances. But there's definitely that too.
Or Joel, you got the massive, like, in your face catchy, like, welcome to Jet2 holidays.
Oh, bro, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. It doesn't help, does it? Because honestly, like, if you get up in the morning at 4 a.m. to get a 6 a.m. Ryanair flight, you don't want to be hearing that. You just don't. But anyway, I just want to ask this question, Jake, before we move on, because I think it's interesting. On that point about pop music, Mary, do you think that what's popular in the charts is a representation of, like, the culture at the moment? Like, that's what people like to listen to? Or do you think it's just as simple as, like, music technology advances and just, like, what people prefer to listen to changes? Or do you think there's something in it to do with, like, where the culture is at emotionally will determine what kind of music is most popular? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose when you think of pop songs, and how I think those artists or whatever production team behind those artists that are producing the music, they understand how powerful music has on how influential are they on the brain, and how they reaches the brain much deeper than just words. So they will kind of make use of that. It's quite like a manipulative tactics in a sense that you use the music to kind of get into your brain to what you believe in. And another thing is those pop songs with the lyrics, they heavily rely on the analogic mode, and they use the lyrics to guide the listeners, making it very clear to you that this is what you're supposed to feel. This is what the mood of the song is. The song is about breakup, and you are now feeling heartbroken, and this is what you should feel when you have a breakup. But maybe you don't want to feel in that way. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you feel a sense of relief in your breakup. But by listening to that song, you felt that it's almost tuned or primed, like your brain to think, oh, so I should be feeling heartbroken in my breakup. And it's a kind of a conditioning, like we said. So that's one problem of what the lyrics in the song in those pop musics could do. But if you think of, instrumental music or classical music, they don't really have the lyrics. They don't tell you what you should feel. And everyone has their own interpretations of what these songs mean to them. Some people could feel a sense of loneliness in this song, but some people could feel a sense of empowerment in the song. So that's probably one of the reasons why I felt classical music or instrumental music connect with people in a deeper level in such ways, because they don't guide you to think. They don't teach you what to think or what to feel.
Yeah, that makes
Joel,
sense.
when you said about this unconscious priming, what did you mean by that?
So, like, conscious you wasn't aware. Let's go back to our example of, like, like hotel lobbies, okay, and, like, nice music. Maybe your ego consciousness is not aware that that's affecting you, but it's unconsciously priming you to feel a certain way. So your audio system will be sensing the music, right? But you might go into that hotel and not be like, oh, this music's nice. Like, your consciousness may not notice it. That's why it's called unconscious. And it primes you because it almost, like, affects your readiness to feel and think a certain way, right? It primes you to be ready to interact with the person at the counter in a bit more friendly way, or to think that this, like, restaurant or hotel is a posh and extravagant place. Like, does that make sense? It's almost like it's subtly, unconsciously influencing you. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mary, from what you know of research and stuff, but that's my understanding.
Yeah. Research does have shown that, the rhythm and the music are able to prime your thinking, your motor, your cognition, your speech, and your behavior, and on a subconscious level. And music could help build that kind of environment and connections in the brain. We call it like neural pathways. So it could, on one hand, um, get into your brain, improve your brain function, and allow you to be thinking in this way, productive, to have a functional life. But it also can, you know, a, in an inappropriate type of music could also affect your behavior. Let's say you'll become more violent, you'll be less emotional stable. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking now. I think you guys kind of pointed to this example, but I know the like restaurant chains like Nando's, I think particularly do this, where they use pop music to get people in and out as quick as possible, and it's almost like the music's like it's urgent, like that you
Mm.
get the sense of like bam bam bam, like it's urgency. But I think there's other ways of like this unconscious priming, because I'm thinking it in like other contexts of like study. Well, I'm thinking about study music as well, and how I wonder how like I mean I don't know if you guys listen to the same study music that I do, but it's like high. It's almost like a higher beat than a higher BPM than pop music, because it really like locks you in and concentrates and focus, and it's like you almost forget it's there, and you're so locked in, and you're like focusing on your task that it's still playing in the background, but like you're still there. But I think I was thinking about this today because I was in a nice coffee shop today, and how maybe this unconscious priming could be used in like the lighting, and how I was in this very like it had like a very dim lights, this coffee shop, and it gave this dim like low key lighting gave like a more deeper feel to my experience, and it was like more kind of intense. It felt more like significant what we were saying. So it's almost like we go about in this world and everything's designed so cleverly, especially by the big chains. And I loved your example about shopping, and how maybe like if it's very if we're like getting a new suit, it might be more of a sort of uh, a classical like long strings and very like long notes, and more like a lulling, calming experience than if I was just to go into Primark and want to grab a couple bits, and it's like, come on, get this, buy this now, urgency. But yeah, I just thought I'd add those thoughts. It's quite interesting.
Well, I think those like, let's call them like sensory triggers. These unconscious, like these sources of unconscious priming are everywhere. They are everywhere in your life, and I feel like if you can manipulate them for your own benefit, then you'll gain massively. Like I know there was a lot about that in a book I read called Deep Work by Cal Newport, a big like productivity book. He talks about this idea of like sanctity of space. Okay, so when you come down to do like some sort of intellectual work, doing it in the same place, often or perhaps at the same time, perhaps with the same like background music, it will kind of get you into a habitual brain mode. Like I see you nodding there, Mary. I'm interested if you have some like specific knowledge from the research on that, but it just makes sense. Like I know for me, I listen to the same playlist, usually queuing the same few sets of songs to get me in the right mode to write or to prep for podcasts or to read. It's always classical or kind of lo-fi, no lyrics, just very calming and sort of very easy to flow in, and it can just kind of sit there in the background and not interfere too much. But yeah, Mary, tell me what you think about this.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned lo-fi music, which is quite popular for university students or students in general, to put as the background music to help them focus in the studying, because the the mellow beats with the repetitions and there's no lyrics, words a bit like the rhythmic anchor for your brain. So the steady tempo and a very predictable patterns create this sense of calmness and stability. So when your brains detect this very regular rhythm, your nervous system will start to calm down and settle, and your heart rate will slowly getting slower, and your breathings will even out. So we enter this state of feeling relaxed, but it's not alert, but you can also focus. And when you think of something that's very steady, lo-fi music, there's no sudden changes or there's no lyrics competing for your attention. So your brain doesn't really get distracted, especially important when you're studying. So you can devote more of your energy, your effort, your attention into this working memory, which is exactly the function that we need when we are writing, when we're reading. And yeah, lo-fi, it's often considered as ambient background sounds. So it kind of like mimics the feeling of when you're sitting in a very cozy cafe on a couch. You're feeling relaxed. So psychologically, that could also make you feel safe and very contained. So you don't feel as pressured to rush into something and to feel that you have to work in complete silence that you might kind of start to fall asleep. So yeah, I think that's where Adolescence is.
Do you think, sorry to butt in there, but do you think, or do you know from research that this kind of music helps induce flow state? Because it would make sense in my head, and just from like my own personal experience, that seems to be the case.
I don't recall any research at the moment, but you mentioned a very nice word, flow state. So in order to get into flow state, how do you usually get into flow state?
Me personally, I guess it's I mean, I've read Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book on flow, so I can't pretend that that's not influencing what I say here. But it's always calming music, kind of a slow tempo, a lot of classical stuff, maybe some lo-fi stuff, and then like a task that requires significant attention and focus, but isn't like overwhelming. So like I know what the demands are of me, and I know that I can do them, but I know they'll require effort. It's like that middle point where it's like not too easy that you're bored, but not too hard that you're overwhelmed. If I have that, and I have like the vibe of nothing stressful going on around me and that music, I can drop into flow. That's sort of in cognitive side. And then obviously you've got the sporting side for me, which is a bit more like situation dependent. So like in a game or in a training scrimmage, like I'm going to drop into flow just naturally because of the demands on me in that situation.
Yeah. So yeah, Jacobs, what about your experience?
I was thinking along the lines of like, I don't think meditation and flow are the same thing, but it's almost like they're in the same family. Because like meditation music, I'm thinking it's like very tranquil, and you get like a couple little wind chimes, and then it's like just like a nice breeze, and then you get another couple wind chimes. And it's extremely like your frequencies and your awareness is totally increased, and I don't know if that's quite the same as flow state. Maybe the music and flow state has to be sort of somewhere in between, like Joel was saying about the task has to be difficult but not too difficult. Maybe the music has to be sort of some type of not too high a frequency, not too low a frequency. I feel like there is something interesting there where there's like a trigger. And I don't know if you want to stay on this same topic of flow, but I also had another thought about like I'm thinking on these same themes about like classical masterpieces. Like I think it's Far East or something like that.
Far East, yeah.
Yeah, like that song is almost like it resonates as something in us so deep, and we get such a like an overwhelming like feeling like it was meant, like we were meant to hear it. Like I don't know what is going on there with like some of these classical songs that just get it so right. It's like it triggers emotion and like kind of the sublime feeling, but I don't know how.
Yeah, I think that's so. I want to say it was in a bit of Kierkegaard that I read where he said like a true masterpiece or a true classic in something is like so good and so reflective of the human experience that it's immortal. So any generation can understand why it's so good. So like I don't know, like songs that were massive over the last 10 years, they're great songs, but will they be relevant, or will they still resonate, or will they still land in 100 years? You don't know, but I'm pretty confident that, if my son or daughter in however many years' time listens to Fur Elise, when they're old enough to appreciate it, it will still land in some way. So I think some pieces of music they hit a chord that's so universal to all humans at all times that they are like a classic. They are like a masterpiece. Does that like make sense, or kind of get across what you're thinking, Jake?
Yeah. But wait, Mary, what do you like to listen to?
I like to listen to classical music and some of the old songs. I listen to all kinds of music, partly because of my job that I have to get into different genres, my clients' needs. But yeah, I personally really enjoy classical music.
Can you play Far East on piano?
Yes, I do play the piano.
Yeah. Can you play Far East?
Now you mean I play it now?
No, you don't have to play it now. There's no
I was like,
I've got a funny story though. I've got a funny story on that, Jake, because I didn't tell you this before we started recording. But yesterday I was in Cologne in Germany, and we wanted to get, our train was like in the mid afternoon, and we were just getting some like late breakfast, right? And we're in this this quite, I don't know, very modern like German coffee shop, like bistro-y type place for breakfast. And our food took ages to come. I don't know if it's because like we didn't speak any German, so like, look at these like English people, let's just like put their order right to the bottom, whatever. And then when the food came, it was quite terrible because I didn't really know what I ordered because there was no English on the menu. So I'm just eating like this weird like toast thing with some cold egg and avocado. I'm like, this is terrible. And I'm like, God, I've wasted an hour here and the food isn't even good. But then a silver lining came through because this guy just comes to this random piano, right? That's in the middle of this coffee shop. And I'm like, oh, I hope he's good. I hope he's not taking the piss. He just pulls open the top and just plays Fur Elise just off the dome. He's got no music. He just plays it off the dome. And I was like, it changed my whole perception of that breakfast experience. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't annoyed that it took so long. It just like the whole emotional landscape changed everything. So I thought I'd just add that
Yeah.
in.
No, no. I'm just thinking, like, if you were to play Far East on piano, like you're like in like a master's shoes, and like imagine playing it then. Like, I think that'd be so cool. You're actually doing it. You're going on that adventure. And that song itself, it feels like a progression through life. It feels like, because it does progress, and it is like it does strike something inside of us. So that's
You're,
what I wanted.
you're almost possessed by the spirit of mastery. That great composer created that thing years and years and years ago, and now you can almost be like ventriloquized by it and like embody its power, I guess. I don't know, we're getting a bit abstract now, but Mary, I did actually want to ask you, this is one of my points for today's conversation, is about a little bit about your personal story, I guess, because I know like Jacob told me that you play like music, you play piano, I guess. I don't know if there's other things that you play. Um, but then there's also this like psychology, neuroscience side of things. Like, did you study psychology? Was it always an interest to you? And how did those two worlds come together? Like, were they together from the start for you as a kid or a teenager? Or when did you decide to take maybe these two parts of your life and put them together and create a job out of it? Like, I'm interested in, because what you do is quite out of the ordinary, but it's fascinating. So, but give me a little bit of that journey and that story arc.
thank you. So I started playing the piano since I was 4. And I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I was trained as a classical concert pianist. So growing up, it's always like, oh, music as a type of professional performance, I have to be, perfect in it. I was in lots of competitions. And then I started developing the stage fright because of this perfectionism in me. I don't want to let my teachers down, myself down, my parents down. So how I get into music therapy is kind of like a little omen. It's very unexpected because music therapy is never very well known or promoted in Asia, especially Hong Kong. It's such a small city. Um, so I was in my university, I think year 3 or year 4. And then I was in a like I was doing double major in music and translation between Chinese and English. So music has always been my passion. It's always been there. So of course, like when I went into university, I said, I'm going to do music. And translation is also just my hobbies. So, at that time, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. But I was just following my heart. I know I want to do these two things. And then there was this opportunity came through in my university where they sent you a bursary, a budget. You can organize a surface trip to any Southeast Asian countries. So I went to the Philippines and Bali in Indonesia. We went into this school with, lots of children with physical disabilities, with special educational needs. And then instead of teaching them what to do, like how to play music, we were using different tools, different materials, just like paper or recycled plastic, and just some very daily materials you will see. And we built makey. So that's like you use Logic Pro and some software in your computer, and you build that this kind of musical instruments. And the children were having so much fun, and I've seen such transformative power of music. It's not just performative, but it's very healing and therapeutic. So there was this autistic boy in the school. At first, he didn't have any interaction with people. He was just in a corner. He's not making eye contact. But after some sessions with them, and all the children were there to support him, he started to open up and he started picking up the guitar. We never knew he can play the guitar, but then when he opened up and he break over his shell, he started playing the guitar and interacting, singing with everyone. It's just such a soul touching moment for me. And then I started Googling what music therapy is. And then I found where I can do the master. So I came to London and I was graduated from Roehampton University. So they have a master degree in music therapy. And then I got registered. Yeah, that's how the journey has been in short.
Yeah, that's very cool, very wholesome. To see that direct impact.
Oh, I like that. It's like music. It brings people together, and it builds connections. And I'm interested in the stage that you're at now. What are some like common sort of patterns that you notice in your clients? What are sort of, especially like maybe I know you do a lot of work with children, and what do sort of children struggle with?
So I work with children and young people. We're looking at the age, let's say, from infant school to secondary school. So I've definitely noticed different patterns in different age groups. Let's say children, but because people who are referred to music therapy, they have some needs. Let's say they have some challenging, maybe the school thinks they have some challenging behavior in school, or maybe the parents in the school think, oh, they have some traumatic experiences that make them start to avoid school, to have all this kind of self-harm behavior that they couldn't understand. So they referred us to music therapy. Um, and one thing that I've noticed is how impactful, how much the parents or the family dynamics or the growing up, your environments, the people that you interact with, the people who you talk with, has these kind of influence on the children. Because let's say if the child is growing up in a very unsafe environment, when they witness domestic violence, that could make them violent with their peers in the school. Or let's say when I have the client that he's been avoiding school and he just been very, very violent to the mom and to the staff in the school because his brother has a life-limiting illness and he has to be hospitalized all the time. And he's, of course, skipping schools. So he saw this kind of behavior as, oh, my brother can skip school. Why can't I skip schools? So that's why that influenced his behavior of not coming to schools and also having, lots of friendship fallouts, because that's how he sees relationship as, you know, unstable, aggressive.
Mm. I imagine skipping school's like a big one. I mean, it's just like it's an it's extreme isolation, like a time where you don't want to be isolated at an age like at all. Like, because I imagine like the younger, the kind of more important it is. I'd be interested in your thoughts about like your thoughts, Joel, about like what that sort of does sort of in a child's mind, as I know you sort of had a bit of time off school.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to go before I like acknowledge that, Jake. Just to go back to what was said, I think this is such a important pattern to recognize. It's like especially for young people, it's the norms of their like intimate environment and their closest relationships will just imprint on their behavior, even if they know that that's not the right thing to do, or if there's other sources telling them it's not right. If that family unit or that home environment is that, like, those are the things that's just a done thing. It's what my older brother does, or it's how dad treats mum. It's like it's there. That's the beginning of that child's view of the world and their construction of reality. So if that's a certain way, then yeah, I mean, it's a hard kind of problem to tackle, isn't it? It really is, especially when you're coming in as a therapist and you sort of, it's really hard to break down those fundamental beliefs and feelings and norms. Um, but on your question, Jacob, about missing school, I mean, I guess it's especially early on, it's our secondary most important like social integration process. Once that's when you leave the secure base of like your mother or your primary caregiver's close care, and you go out into the world and you have to go and like make friends. I mean, it's so crucial. I mean, I missed a lot of school when I was quite a bit older, so I think I was okay. I think it benefited me, if anything, because I guess I was a bit more established in myself at that point. But it's kids' first exposure to a whole range of different people and fitting into a little society in that school, and how to play by the rules but not be constricted by them, and how to get along with people and get along with people you don't like. I mean, it's a lot, I think.
Would you say like when the child's going to school, the teacher sort of becomes a secure base?
It depends on the teacher, man. I mean, I guess you do have some people, don't you, who say like, oh, I really miss. I had an art teacher back in secondary school who was like a real good friend to me, and they were a real good like mentor or guide, or like the PE teacher was really like motivational for me to pursue this sport, or I was really good at maths, so me and the math teacher got on. Like, you can have those relationships, but maybe what I'd say, Jake, is as you get older, maybe your close friend group becomes the base of which you explore the world, and having those like frequent interactions every day. I mean, like, think about it now, Jacob, for our age group. We're like 21 years old now, and I'm just about coming out of that educational routine of you are with these same people every day for like 5 days a week, every week. It's like there's constant interactions. You build such a bond with them, and then it kind of ends. And it's like the effort of trying to see friends now is just so massive compared to what it
Mm.
was. And so I think it's all about those like those close friends that you do build, hopefully do build through school, that then act as that foundation for your social world going forward.
Mary, I'm interested in your thoughts about like how realistic for you watching was Netflix's Adolescence, and like how realistic is it for sort of a lonely teenager to sort of go out and sort of kill a girl, and like, yeah, what did you think about that series?
I think the series, it's quite realistic in a lot of senses of how they portray some common problems that the teenagers are facing nowadays. They know a lot of things. They form these friendship circle, but they also felt, quite isolated and lonely when there's no one truly cares about them, or um they felt like, oh, they need to fit into this kind of social norms to be respected, to be loved, to be popular. So it definitely highlights the importance of like how emotionally engaged father figures for boys, and how, the psychologists do the assessment in the shows. But also I was thinking how whether there's some limitations of the series, and um if this series is making the parents or the schools nowadays to feel even more anxious because they think, oh, this baby faced 13-year-old could murder someone. What if my son, uh, could he be possible to murder someone in schools? And it's good that some parents do pay a bit more attention to their children, maybe after the series. I remember I was on a dinner table and I was talking to my friends about the series, and the parents next to me just jumped in and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, actually watched that, and this is what I did after the show." And it's just crazy how these teenagers are thinking in their head. Like you never get to understand what they're thinking, even though you're spending lots of time with them. And yeah, do we need to have this kind of fear of, well, their kid could potentially commit murder? This is something we should think about, because you don't really need the stress and the extra stress and the guilt about how the children use the technology, and you can't really spy on them 24 hours. So yeah, we can't control every portal of the influence.
You haven't been like opposite like a kid before where you've been like, whoa, this child is like totally evil. Whoa. uh, have you had anything like that?
In my work experience, no, not that level of evilness. But I do have a client that's I would say a little bit similar to what Jamie, the main character in that show, because um the show heavily explores the topic of masculinity, what's true masculinity is, and the what a healthy father figure should be, and what the schools should be doing when they kind of found something suspicious about the children. And the client that I worked with, the boy, he's in year 5. He's been avoiding school, and he also have this eating disorder called ARFID. So it's avoidant and anxious food intake disorder. So it has not much to do with body dysmorphia, but it's more like these sensory things that make him stop eating a certain type of certain group of foods. So he only eats beige food, brown food. But that's not the main point. The main point is the teachers told me that he's been consuming red pill content and like android content online since year 4. So from the time he started consuming the content to him seeing me, it's been already a year. And the father has been very emotionally unavailable at the family. The father preaches, you have to be a man, so you can't express your emotions. You have to suppress it. And in the schools, you are the man. So whatever the teachers, if they're female, they're telling you to do this, you don't really have to listen to them because they're female. And he's very violent with his mother. He would kick his mother, be physically aggressive because he doesn't want to go to school. And the mom, he's quite a big boy, and his mom, very petite, short lady, she's scared. She's scared of him even. So she couldn't bring him to school. And when he comes to therapy, I felt this very strong sense of resistance. He just doesn't want to interact with me. He thinks therapy is BS. And he lied to me that he's seeing another male therapist. But actually, he's not a therapist. He's just a sports coach that, do some football training with him after school. And maybe they will talk about a little bit of the feelings, like, oh, how are you feeling today? That's it. But it's not really a therapy, right? But he's been trying to avoid coming to therapy because he thinks this is not something that I need. I don't think this therapy, works for me and all that. So that kind of, his case reminds me of Jamie in that Adolescence. But I do not want to get into like how evil he could be, because, yeah, this is not necessary. Yeah.
It just shows like there are so many just complicated cases everywhere, man, and you never know sort of what a particular parent's going through or kids going through and all of that. So yeah, it's just fascinating to hear that like direct personal story. As we're sort of coming to the closing chapter of this conversation, to kind of branch out from what you said just there, but also broaden things as well. With this line of work that you do, is there any takeaways that you could give parents or like people like me and Jacob that are listening to this and are interested on how we can use music and music therapy techniques in our day-to-day life to improve mental health and improve quality of life and our experience? Are there any sort of like takeaways that we can apply to our lives that you would share?
Mm, I would say be mindful of the music that you are consuming every day. There's no necessary like the best music, to listen to. But just to say, be a bit more mindful about what you're listening, and the sounds that's surrounding you, and spend a bit more time in, nature. Listen to the sounds, not just music, because they helps you feel very grounded, very present in the moment. And if you feel like you don't need music, you don't have to listen to music all the time, because sometimes I felt people are getting a bit overly stimulated by music. They wake up with music. They on routes they're listening to music. Shower they listen to music, but maybe that's a little bit more. That could be a bit overwhelming to you. So if you feel like there's some silence needed in your life, you don't have to listen to music. Um, yeah. So
It's very
Thank
nice.
you,
Very
Mary.
interesting.
And if people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
So I have an Instagram page. It's Mary underscore music therapist with double Y. And I'm also on TikTok with the same handle. And if you are interested in therapy, you can find me on Psychology Today, or there's a link in my Instagram.
Mary,
Amazing.
thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
everyone for listening.
Thank you for having me today.